All right. Welcome, guys. Good morning. It's good to see you here. Thanks for taking the
Good
time. Morning, Robert.
morning, Pastor Ben.
Good. I'm glad to hear the outreach went well. The mall, the singing outreach at the mall. That heard it went well.
Yeah, praise God. Thanks for your prayer.
That was great. Looking forward to being there in Cebu here in a couple weeks for the
Oh,
marriage retreat.
praise God.
So hopefully maybe I'll see some of you guys there. We'll be coming in that Friday, January 26th, staying until Monday. So I'll be preaching at the main church in Banawa as well. And then I think we have a marriage couples retreat that weekend. My wife will be there as well. So maybe I'll be able to see some of you who are in the area. Okay, so today I want to just keep focusing attention on the connector words for you. Again, the goal of these Zoom sessions is really to supplement what we covered in the class, to answer your questions, to review some of the things that we covered in the class, and then go through some examples together, and hopefully becomes more clear. We're going to focus attention. We've looked at the last couple weeks. We're going to focus the next few weeks really on this section of the diagramming, since as I mentioned before, that's the most helpful, most important, but also most difficult step in the study process. And so we want to spend some time here. A number of you have already finished the connector word assignment, which is great. Many of you are doing very well keeping up with your assignments. I've been really encouraged by that. So just want to continue to encourage you in that way, and also ask you to encourage other brothers in the class to stay with it. It's a lot easier to just keep working on the assignments each week rather than waiting until the last minute to do them. That's the harder way to do it. And a lot of guys who do that end up being tempted to quit just because it becomes too much. So, but a lot of you guys have been staying on top of the assignments, which has been great. So appreciate that. Keep it up. But we still want to focus some time and attention on the diagramming place here. And so we'll be looking at connector words this week, but then next week we'll go through some examples of diagramming for the next few weeks. And Pastor Jim's going to take over for a few weeks as well to help out with that. Then we'll move to the subsequent assignments after that, the textual observations and the resources, word studies, those steps as well. So we will review that. But as I have said before, if you have any questions as we're going through, any questions at all, ask. Or if you have any questions about your assigned passage as we go through, that's fine to ask as well, related to what we're talking about for the Zoom class. All right. So with that, let's jump right in. Again, our focus is going to be on the connector words today. And we've already now given attention, and this is our 5th Zoom session together. 2 of them I recorded, but the last 3 we've been able to do live, and our focus in them has been on assignment 1.13, which is the connector words assignment. And then next session, next week, Lord willing, we'll start working on some diagramming examples for that, as I just mentioned. Again, the procedure for our diagramming is looking at the passage as we're breaking it down. We're breaking down the paragraph into its phrases and clauses. So we first identify the first independent clause that we see. And then after that, identify the rest of the phrases and clauses by looking for the connector words, which introduce each of those phrases and clauses. And again, we have the 4 major kinds of connector words. These are the most prominent ones in English: conjunctions, prepositions, relative pronouns, participles. And then sometimes we can also add in the punctuation, like commas, periods, semicolons, exclamation points, question marks. But those aren't part of the original text. Those are added in by the translation. but they can also show us at least a translator's opinion about where a particular phrase or clause may end. So that can be a helpful guide as well. But our focus is going to be on these connector words, because those are words that are actually in the text. Now, last week we jumped ahead to the participles, because those are the most difficult, the most challenging, and have the most questions. So I hope at least what we did last week may have given you a little more help and insight in those participles and how to spot them. They are the most difficult to do. This week, what I'd like to do is now go back, take a look at the other three kinds of connector words, just review a few key concepts, go through an example in Colossians for those on the way. But again, feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions as we go. All right. Again, you'll find a lot of this information in your syllabus. We'll review some of that. I'll add some additional examples as we go through here together with one another. And what I would like to do is just what I did last week when we were together, and that is, as we go through, I'll be, as we do the examples, calling on you guys to help out, just to encourage a little bit of participation, since this Zoom is a little more challenging to do that. Now, if you remember, there are two kinds of conjunctions that we have in English. The first we call the coordinating, and those join two parts of a sentence that are grammatically equal, two ideas that are of equal importance. That's why we have the word coordinate, because the co has the idea of equal. All right, it carries the meaning of equal. Co-laborer, right? Paul uses that term. Co-laborers, equal laborers, partners, co-workers. So coordinating is this idea of joining two parts of a sentence that are grammatically equal. And those can be two phrases, two clauses, two words, two subjects, two verbs, two objects. So it connects two adjectives. It connects two grammatically equal parts in a sentence. Now, subordinating, notice there's a difference here in the beginning of the word sub. Sub has the idea of under, right? We can think of submarine, all right? Submit. So a subordinate is someone who is under another person in rank. And so actually in Greek, the idea of the word submit or subject actually comes from a term that is describing an ordering under in the military sense. And so when you think of subordinate, it's a one person under the authority of another. And so a subordinating conjunction places a clause under another word. That is, it modifies, it supports another word in the sentence. When we think of coordinating, it's not bringing under another phrase or clause. It's just connecting together two equal parts. They could both be independent clauses. They could be both dependent clauses. They could be phrases or words. That's coordinating. It can connect all different kinds of things, but they're going to be the same grammatically, whatever it connects. But subordinating conjunctions always bring the clause that follows underneath the word it modifies. And that's why they are called subordinating. Okay? Let me go through a little more details on this, all right? I just talked about coordinating. Again, note the word coordinate carries the idea of equal in rank or importance, all right? And there are really 5 primary common coordinating conjunctions: and, nor, but, or, and yet. And I've asked you guys to memorize these 5 because you will see them everywhere, especially and, but, and, or. We do see the others, but and, but, and or are you're gonna find them all over in the Bible translations. So if you can memorize these 5, you'll be able to capture a number of the coordinating conjunctions. And by the way, if you know you have a conjunction, you can know if it is coordinating or subordinating just by asking the question, okay, is it one of the 5? If it's one of these 5, it's going to be coordinating. If not, it's 99.9% going to be subordinating. Okay? So memorize and boy. And, nor, but, or, yet. Just memorize those 5. And that'll really help you. Okay? So, some examples. I walked to the store and I bought some bread. Okay? And, notice, one of the and boy, coordinating conjunction. And here it's joining 2 independent clauses. I, subject, walked, verb, to the store. I bought some bread. Those are equal in terms of their grammatical function. They're both independent clauses. Okay? So the coordinating conjunction is just connecting those 2. Now, in the next example, do not turn to the right or to the left. Again, notice or, it's one of the and boy, one of those 5. And in this case, it is joining 2 phrases. Do not turn is the main clause, the independent clause, and then to the right is a location, right? A direction. So that's modifying. Should have put it under turn here. Whoops, what happened there? Should be under turn. Do not turn where? To the right or to the left. Also modifying turn. It is the same. It's a phrase and it's parallel to the right, right? Grammatically, those are doing the same thing. They are both indicating a direction. They're both modifying turn in the sense of do not a direction where not to turn. Okay? And so in this case, both of those are phrases. To the right and to the left are phrases. All right, another example. Bob read the book, which was too long, but which was interesting. Okay, so Bob read the book. That's my independent clause. Bob is the subject. Read is my verb. That's the action. And then the object is the book. That's what's receiving the action. Now, which was long? Actually, this should go under book. It's describing the book. Which book? What kind of book? The book which was long. And then there's this but. What's the but doing here? Well, the but is connecting which was long to which was also interesting. All right, so these 2 clauses, notice they have a subject, which, a verb was. All right, so they are clauses. These are dependent clauses. Notice they are modifying. They both modify book. They're both describing the book. They're not saying how Bob read. They're not describing Bob. They're describing the book. Which was long, but which was also interesting. So notice the but here gives us like a contrast. Even though the book was long, it was still interesting. It's the idea. But notice both of these are grammatically equal. Which was long, which was interesting. They are both dependent clauses. They both modify book. Okay? Any questions on that, those examples, or on coordinating conjunctions? We all okay with
I
this?
have one question, Dr. Dick.
Yes, Yancy.
On the assignment on chapter 1, verse 5. So how will I identify this one? Because the hope laid up for you in heaven is a clause, but it is preceded by because of, which is preposition.
All right. Pull up, actually.
Would it be a dependent clause or
Here, let's just go to the notes. I have this Colossians 1:5
Verse
here
5.
because of.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this case, is that a coordinating conjunction?
This is preposition. Because of is preposition.
Well, what is because though? Because doesn't. What do you think it's modifying here? Because of the hope laid up for you. This is actually a little bit of a complicated sentence.
Yeah.
How did you understand it?
It can modify both either have or give all the way to the first independent clause.
Okay, because of the hope can modify, what were you saying?
Have. You have
Oh, okay, this
or give thanks.
or this.
Give. Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, we give thanks because of
Because
the hope laid up for you, or the love which you have because of the hope laid up for you. So it's giving a reason, right? That word because, it's one of those funny terms. Because of actually goes together in this case. But yeah, it could be modifying either one of those, and it's giving a reason.
Pastor Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is only my assessment here from verse 5. This is the whim, the reason of Paul thanksgiving, since we heard three reasons of your faith in Christ, the love which you have, and because of hope laid up of you in heaven. That is salvation, I suppose.
Okay, say that
Start in
again.
verse 4.
Okay.
In verse 4, since we heard the reason of Paul thanksgiving of your faith in Christ, the first one, and then and conjunction, the love to which you have, and for all the saints, and the third one, because of the hope which is salvation laid up for you in heaven. The reasons of Paul thanksgiving.
Okay, I see what you're doing there.
Oh.
Let me see
So,
if I can. Yeah, Yancey.
Doctor.
Yeah, you go ahead. Oh,
Yeah.
Stephen.
What I am confused of is that first on the second step you have to take all the independent clause, dependent clause, and phrases. So now, my question is, um, how is it to identify this clause? Would it be uh, identified as dependent clause um, because of as per appendix 2 is a preposition, and since dependent clause must be preceded by linking word, it's either subordinating conjunction or a relative pronoun. But in this case, because of is a preposition. So the hope laid up for you in heaven would be a dependent clause or what?
Oh, okay. Now I understand your question. Sorry, I did not catch it before. Okay, that's a good
Yeah.
question. Here, let me do this. Let's just take a moment. Put this down here. Okay, so we give thanks is my independent clause. right? That's the
Yeah.
subject. We give is the verb, and thanks is the noun. We give thanks. Where do we give thanks? To God, right? That's
Yeah.
the direction. Okay, to is the preposition. It's introducing it. It's saying this is the direction towards where we give thanks. God, and then the Father is just describing, and then of our Lord Jesus Christ. Okay, and then we have praying always for you. Oops. Praying always is how we're giving thanks. Praying always for you. All right. I would put it under praying. It's we could say the direction of our prayer, or some might put it up here as the content, right? That's okay. I'm okay with doing that either way. All right. Praying always for you. Now we have, and I think Robert was talking about this, since we heard of your faith. Where does that go? What is that modifying? Is it modifying praying or something else?
Mm.
And I think Robert said that modified give thanks. Is that correct, Robert?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree. That's telling us when we give thanks. Ever, like, since we heard of your faith, when we heard of your faith, you could say it that way as well. Or since can also be sometimes the idea of a reason, a because. All right, that's in English, since can be used in either way. But either way, it's going to modify give thanks. Either telling us when or the reason we give thanks. Since we heard of your faith, all right, and faith here is what faith? What kind of faith? In Christ Jesus. And we heard of your faith and of your love. Okay, it's the object of heard. Remember, this is a coordinating conjunction here that we've been talking about. It's going to connect two grammatically equal ideas here. And in this case, it's connecting your faith with the love. All right, since we heard of two things, since we heard of your faith in Christ Jesus and the love. You guys follow me so far?
Yeah.
Okay, now.
Yes, because this is our assignment.
Yeah, see, I'm helping you. Actually, Jim's going to get mad at me because I asked him to do this, but he can diagram Colossians 4 for you guys later. Okay, so the faith and the love, what kind of love? The love which you
Both.
have. Okay, so it's going to modify love. The love which you have, and then the direction is for all the saints. Okay, so that takes us now. Run out of, I'm gonna have to change the font. Give me a second, guys. All right, here we go. So now we come to, what do I do with because of? So as Yancey said, because of is noted as a preposition in your appendix, and it is functioning that way because of the object. The object is the hope. Is hope a noun or a verb? Anybody?
Noun.
No.
A noun, right? Remember, prepositions are followed by a noun. Okay, if there was a clause here, then this would be different. But it's followed by, hope is a noun, but you may say, well, what about laid up for you? I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, but because of the hope. So this word because of gives the idea of what? What is because of? Or because, the word because, normally what does that do? in a sentence? How does that function? What does it tell us normally?
Where?
Reason.
Reason.
A reason. Yeah,
Reason.
why? I love my wife because
Hmm.
she is beautiful. All right. So it's a reason. And here he's giving a reason because of the hope. Now the question is, as Robert mentioned, okay, well, where does this go?
Hmm.
Does it go here? You have love because of the hope. Does it go here? Or does it go here? Now
Thanks.
notice I only pointed to verbs.
Yeah.
Anybody know why I did that?
Because
This is
Go ahead,
carry
Robert,
on.
or Stephen, go ahead.
this is the reasons of Paul of thanksgiving. It goes to give thanks.
Okay, but why? My question is, why did I say that it will only modify one of these three verbs? I didn't choose any of the other words here.
Mm.
All right, we'll talk about which verb in a minute. But first I
Okay.
want to, Stephen, go ahead.
Yeah, because when you are saying a reason, it functions as an adverb. So that means it modifies a verb. So it's an
Yes.
adverbial phrase.
Okay, good. That's exactly right. So if you'll remember, when we discussed in class, we talked about there are phrases and clauses will act like an adverb or an adjective. All right, let me get rid of this. Okay, an adverb, or let me flip this around, it'll be easier. Remember, in fact, last week we discussed this when we just talked about participles, and we said there are four basic parts of speech in English, four main parts of speech in English, and that is nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. All right, those are the building blocks, so to speak. Now, right, a noun is a person, place, or thing. All right, and nouns can function as the subject of a sentence or an object of a sentence or the object of a preposition. Okay. And then we have verbs. Verbs describe the action or state of being of a subject. Okay. So there's the verbs of action, verbs of being. But they both are connected to a subject. The subject does something or is something. All right. Now, an adjective, what does an adjective do?
It modifies a
It modifies a noun.
A noun. Correct. Modifies a noun. It's telling us something about a noun. It answers the question, what kind? Which one? How many? It describes a noun. Tells us something about a noun. However, an adverb modifies a
verb.
Or it can modify another adverb or adjective. Basically, an adverb modifies anything else. Adjective modifies a noun. An adverb modifies a verb or adverb or adjective. And it answers the question of this: why, when, where, what am I forgetting?
How?
How, thank you. All right. So it answers those kinds of questions. So when you're looking at a phrase or a clause, that's what you're asking. What question is this going to answer? And the word because gives me the big hint from the meaning of the word. Because gives usually is a reason for something. As I said, I love my wife because she is godly. Okay, because here gives me a reason. So I see the word because, and because of is technically the preposition here. Because of the hope. So I know, okay, this is going to modify a verb because it's answering the question why. It's going to give me a reason. So that's why I said, okay, which verb is it? Is it this verb, have? Is it this verb, heard? Or is it this verb, give? All right, so grammatically, it could be any one of those three. The grammar tells us that this is going to modify a verb because it's going to answer the question why. So the grammar brings us to that point. All right, now we have to ask, all right, in the context here, what seems to make the most sense as to what does it modify? Now, the have is the nearest verb. So that normally is what you would look for. What's the closest verb? But then you ask, does it make sense? The love which you have, do you have the love because of the hope laid up for you? That doesn't make sense. He's saying you have a love, but you don't have the love because of the hope laid up for you. That's not why they love the saints. Is it go to heard? Since we heard of your faith, we heard because of the hope. Is that why they heard?
Yeah.
Or is it we give thanks because of the hope? That
Yeah.
makes more sense, like Robert was saying. Okay, so this is the process you have to go through when you're looking at each phrase and clause, trying to understand where it goes. Now the question, sorry, Yancey, now I'm getting to your question. Okay, forgive me for, I wanted to, so I would put it
It's
here.
okay.
I put it here under give because I think it's giving a reason why Paul gives thanks. I'll get to you in a minute, Kim. Let me answer Yancey's question first. Now, laid up for you. What do I do with that? That looks like a verb. Now, in this case, what do you guys think?
Adjective.
Okay, Stephen, you said adjective. What would it be modifying then?
Hope, the noun.
Yes.
Which
Now, but isn't laid up, this looks like a verb though. So what is it? That's what makes this tricky, I think. Is this
Participle.
why you had the question, Yancey?
Yeah. Actually, I was really confused with this verse. Before even block diagramming, even in the step 2, when you separate all the phrases and clauses. So honestly, I take this verse as a clause, but I was in doubt because of this preposition because of, and I was thinking that this could not be a dependent clause because it is preceded by a preposition. So it raised me a question. That's why.
All right. And that's good that that should have prompted a question because I'm jumping ahead here, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. And Kim, I haven't forgotten your question. I'll get to you in a second. Because of is stated as an English in preposition, as a preposition in English. And if that is the case, normally a preposition is going to be followed by a noun. It's going to be because prepositions always introduce a phrase. Okay. Subordinating conjunctions always introduce a dependent clause. Now, as we look at what follows because of, we have the because of the hope laid up for you, which looks like saying the hope is laid up for you. This looks like a subject and then the verb, right? That's what makes this confusing. This is a little bit more of a challenge, and Stephen is correct. It actually is a participle. Laid up is a participle because notice it looks like a verb, but it's actually modifying hope. It's describing, well, which hope? The hope which is laid up for you, that hope.
Yeah, now I get it, Pastor Tim, because I take laid up as a verb, so that is why. So now that you say it is a participle, now I understand how it is.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe let me see. If we looked at another translation, let's see what another English translation what is done with it. All right. Colossians 1:3. All right. So here we have, because of the hope laid up for you. This is the Legacy Standard. Let's look at the ESV. Because of the hope laid up for you, it says the same thing. How about the New King James? Because of the hope, look at the New King James, which is laid up for you. Okay. So they make it a little more clear. In this case, it's more obvious, right? That which is laid up for you, that modifies hope. Which hope? The hope which is laid up. See that? So they made it a little more clear. Let's look at the NIV. What the NIV do with this? The faith and the hope that the faith and love that spring, okay, stored up for you. So they kind of did the same sort of thing. Okay, so New King James added that relative pronoun in there to kind of help us a little bit. The New American Standard did not. It just has, because of the hope laid up for you. So laid up is describing hope. It's an adjective in this case. It's participle functioning that way. Now, a little later, we can confirm that. We'll learn more and focus attention. I look in an interlinear or something like that to give us, and it'll show us that it's a participle in the Greek text, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look at that real quick so that I'm not misleading you. Yeah. The hope, and there's a participle there. So that word laid up here in the word laid up is actually a participle. All right. So that's one of those things that as you go through and do diagramming, this is why I would encourage you to diagram the whole book of Colossians. Just take a verse or two each week. Try to work through it. Because what's going to happen is you're going to encounter these differences that'll challenge you, but you'll learn going through the process. And then I've diagrammed the whole book of Colossians that maybe once you finished your assignment, I'll give you the whole diagram as well, and you can compare to that. But that's a tough verse.
Thank you,
Okay.
Pastor Tim.
Thanks, Yancy. A long answer to a short question, but okay, Kim, I'm so sorry that took a while. Do you still remember your question?
Oh, it has been answered already, Dr. Tim. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you. It was similar to Pastor Yancy, but I'm all good. Thank you.
All right, good. Okay, well, let's get back to where we were. Thank you for the question. That was a good question. Let me get back to the conjunctions and let's talk about the subordinating ones a little bit. I've already mentioned, actually summarized it, but just to remind us, the subordinating conjunctions joins a dependent clause to the word it modifies. That's generally what subordinating conjunction will do. Now, there's a list of subordinating conjunctions. I have given you the most common ones. You don't have to memorize those, but I would encourage you to be familiar with them because they show up quite often. All right. But the way, maybe another way you could come about to do this, to figure out, do I have a subordinating or coordinating? I'll show you in a minute. But there's a number of them. And if you go to your appendix in your syllabus, you'll see a long list of subordinating conjunctions. I don't know how many there are in English, but there's lots of them. All right. So what I encourage people to do is just memorize the coordinating ones, those 5. And then if you see you have a conjunction and it's not coordinating, then it must be subordinating. That's how I do it in my own mind. So I know and, nor, but, or, yet. I know those 5. So I look, if I have a conjunction and it's not one of those 5, then it must be subordinating. It must be taking the clause that follows it and placing it under some other word in the sentence. Okay? Generally speaking. All right. Let's look at some examples. He preached the sermon before he ate lunch. All right. He preached the sermon. That's my independent clause. Subject he, verb preached. Object is the sermon. And notice before. All right. He ate lunch. He ate lunch is a clause, isn't it? Subject he, verb ate. Object lunch. So before here is a conjunction. Because if you'll remember, subordinating conjunction introduces a dependent clause. All right. Remember this. Important point. Focus on it. Remember this point. Remember this point. All right. Focus on it. A subordinating conjunction introduces a dependent clause. All right. Notice I said subordinating. I didn't say coordinating. All right. I said subordinating. A coordinating conjunction might connect 2 dependent clauses. That's one of the ways it can work. But a subordinating conjunction always introduces a dependent clause. Because remember the idea of sub, come under. So it's going to take the clause that follows it and put it under another word in the sentence. So that's what we have here. He ate lunch is a clause, but it's dependent because we have this subordinating conjunction here right before it. Okay, in fact, it's the word before. Okay, so he preached the sermon. When did he preach? Before he ate lunch. Okay, let's try another example. I prayed fervently. Okay, there's my independent clause. I subject, prayed is my verb. And then fervently actually here is an adverb, modifying prayed, describing prayed. Now I have because. And I know that because is a conjunction because I have what follows it. She was in the hospital. Is that a phrase or a clause? I have the subject see. I have the verb was. It's a clause, isn't it? Remember, a clause contains both a subject and a verb. So this is a clause. So I have a clause following the word because. That means because here is functioning as a subordinating conjunction. And in this case, it is modifying prayed. It's telling why she prayed or why I prayed. I prayed because she was in the hospital. For the reason. So it's going to modify prayed. All right. How about this one? I will play basketball if I can find a court. I will play. That's my independent clause. And then I have this word if, and it's followed by I can find a court. Now, in this case, I can find a court. That is a clause. I is the subject, excuse me. Can find is my verb, and a court is the object. So that's a clause. But in this case, it is dependent because it's introduced by if. All right. If is a conjunction. It's a conjunction. It's followed by a clause. It's subordinating because it's not one of the and boy. It's not and, nor, but, or yet, is it? So it must be subordinating. It's subordinating this clause underneath will play because it's describing here the condition. Or you could even say when. All right, now I noticed, this is one of the things I noticed when you guys were identifying a main sentence in your contextual flow. Some of you included or had your main sentence starting with the word if. I think, for example, if we look at, where was that? Like in Colossians 3, therefore, if you have been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above. Now, what is the main clause here? Some of you put this, if you've been raised up. Now, yes, we do have a subject here, right? The subject is you have been raised up is my verb. So that is a clause, but is it an independent clause? No, because of the word if. So he's introducing the sentence with a dependent. This is a dependent clause. The independent clause is right here. Keep seeking the things above. That's my independent clause. The subject is you. Okay, this is a command here. So we don't see the you, but it's you keep seeking the things above. That's the main clause. Keep seeking if you've been raised up with Christ. So this would go under keep seeking. It's the condition, or technically in this case, because you've been raised, since you've been raised up with Christ. But notice the subordinating conjunction here tells me this is a dependent clause that follows it. All right. So the main sentence is not this part here. The main sentence is what I put a square around. All right. I think we had the same thing in the previous. Yes. Verse 20 here. Sorry, maybe I should make this bigger for you guys. Here, let's do that. Okay, verse 20, notice it begins with if. Okay, I just noticed Stephen's question. Give me a second, Stephen, from Colossians 4. Okay, but let's do it here. So notice verse 20. Verse 20 begins with, if you have died with Christ. So this if you have died, again, looks like that's a clause. Subject you, have died is my verb. But notice it begins with if. All right, that's a dependent clause. My independent clause is actually here. Why do you submit yourself? That's my dependent clause here. The if you have died is a condition, or in this case, acting like since you have died. So the main sentence is, why do you submit yourself? And then he modifies that with this, if you have died. Okay, we know this is dependent because it's introduced by if. All right. Now, Stephen had a question. Colossians. Well, are there any questions on that first? Anybody? All right. All right, I see another question. Alan, I'll get to yours as well in a second here. Does subordinating clause function as an adverb? Yes. Well, it can function, yeah, as an adverb. Subordinating conjunctions. Yes, will modify a verb. So it functions as an adverb. Okay. Stephen's question, Colossians 4. Okay, and you use the NAS version here, I think, right? Let your speech be with grace. Colossians 4:6, is that your verse, Stephen, you're asking
Yes.
about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Pastor Tim.
And your question was, sorry, what was it again?
What is the subject verb?
Okay, yes. So we have this form of a verb called let. So let your speech always be with grace. So what is the subject of this? All right. The subject here, I'll just answer the question first, and then the subject is speech.
Speech.
All right. Let goes with the verb. Let in English can be used that way, is to support the verb. I'll give you some examples. Okay. Let him go home. Oh, sorry. I misspoke on that. I was thinking of something else. I gave you the wrong answer, Stephen. Sorry about that. Let me go back to this. The subject of this is you. Okay. Now you might ask, well, where's the you? Well, let be is my verb. Okay. Speech is the object. You is the subject because this is given as a command. You let be. You let your speech. How could I explain this? And Jim, feel free to jump in if you're on this, if you have a way to explain that helping verb let. You let be good. I'm trying to think of some examples.
Yeah, so Pastor Tim, I was also thinking the same way that there's a you, example, go and make disciples. So you go, right? So there's
Yeah,
a you go. So like you let, so you is a subject, let is the verb, let be or let, then
let go.
your speech.
Yeah,
Your
so
speech
for
is the object.
So
let your speech be with grace. Sorry, Jim, are you there?
I'm here. Yes.
Sound like
I
you're in a
believe this.
tunnel.
I get that a lot. Sorry. I believe it's a third person imperative.
That's what was okay. Third person
Right.
imperative.
That's why that's tricky.
So it's typically used like with like they or him, right? Like here, let him. What would be a better example then? Did any come to your mind that could explain this?
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm having a brain freeze right now. Oh, I think I have an example that will help. Okay. Yeah, here, maybe this will help. Let me take you to Hebrews. All right, Hebrews chapter 10. He's got 3 commands here. Let us draw near. Let us hold fast. And let us consider. Okay. And technically, so these are functioning like a command, but it's not the command like normally directed towards in second person. You do this. He didn't say you draw near. He said, let us draw near. So the subject is us. And it's an idea of a command because it's that word let. It's a way in English to describe a command that's not directed to a second person, to you. So if he had said, draw near, like let's say this let us isn't here. Draw near with a sincere faith, a sincere heart. That would be, the subject would be you. Okay, you draw near. But he said, let us draw near. So it's really a command in the first person. It's saying, let us, you and me, let us draw near. And then let us hold fast. So the subject would be us. Let us draw near. Draw near is the verb. Let us hold fast. Let us consider. So the subject is us. It's a way to express an imperative idea, but not being directed to in the second person. Now, the trick and why I was having a little trouble with Colossians 4 was he said, let your speech be with grace. So he's still speaking to in the second person there. So that's why I'm trying to think if that's the same kind of an example. Give me some time. Let me think about that a little bit, Stephen. I might have to give some thought to that, and I'll send a message to the group. All right, because I want to make sure I
Okay, Pastor
give you
Tim. Thank
an
you.
answer.
No problem. Thank you, Pastor Tim.
Yeah, that's a good question. All right. Jed asks about, does an adverb function as connector word connecting a phrase and a clause? Yes, it can. There are some examples in. So if you see Jed's question, he asked, can an adverb function as a connector word? Yeah, it can, but it will function as one, as a conjunction. For example, the word as. There was some example in Colossians.
The word also. The word also.
Oh, the
In
word
chapter,
also?
in verse 6.
Okay, verse 6. Let's take a look. Which has come to you. Oh, sorry, we're doing NAS. Which has come to you just as in all the world also.
Also.
And now also is an adverb here. It just means this word. It just means to, right? T-O-O. Yeah. It just come to you just as all the world it has also come. So I just usually leave it in the same sentence there because it's a single word. If you have a single adverb like the one earlier, we give thanks, fervent. What was it? Fervently. Where was it? Oh, praying always. That word always. Always is an adverb there, modifying praying. But I usually I leave it on the same line that's what I think I did in the diagram. I don't usually move single words, but sometimes an adverb can introduce a clause. It can be used as a conjunction. For example, just as. The word as is normally an adverb, but here it's being used as a conjunction, just as it is constantly bearing fruit. So it's introducing a dependent clause there. So I would do this. Let's go back to our diagram. Where was it? Where was it here? Okay. Whoops, what happened to it? Oh, that's what happened to it. Here, let me do this. Just come to you. Okay, let's take verse 6. Okay. Okay, the gospel. All right, sorry guys. Hope I'm not confusing everybody here. Okay, the gospel is the last word in verse 5. And then which modifies gospel. Which gospel which has come to you. Okay, so which gospel? The gospel which has come technically to you would go under come. And this is answering where. Okay. Now the question is just as in all the world also. Well, I've got a preposition here. So this is actually a prepositional phrase. In all the world also. And it's come in between my conjunction and my clause. All right, so actually the dependent clause is here. It, and then the verb is constantly bearing fruit. Okay, just as it is constantly bearing fruit. That's my clause. In the world is prepositional phrase that was inserted there. Now, also is an adverb that's modifying it is constant. It is also constantly bearing fruit. All right, just to make things confusing for us. So what I would do with this is this. Just as, I think modifying come. It's comparison to come. Which has come just as, how has it come? It is also constantly bearing fruit. Bearing and increasing. And the word as there is actually an adverb, but in this case it's functioning as a subordinating conjunction, introducing this dependent clause. And technically, yes, constantly is modifying bearing. It's an adverb, but I left it in the same line because if I keep taking out all the individual words, it's going to dilute the effectiveness of the diagram by doing that. So sometimes I'll leave. I did that with also as well. I just left it with the clause that it goes in, that it's part of, or modifying in this case. So I just put it all together there. Now, in all the world is going to go with where is it bearing fruit? It's bearing fruit in all the world. Or it is, because is bearing is the verb. And that was an example we looked at last week on participles, where it looks like a participle because it's got the verb bear plus ing, but because there's a verb of being and a subject, it's actually functioning like a verb here. Not sure if that helped at all, Jed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Dr. Tim,
Yeah.
my take is that it is just as in the world, because the word also it means in addition or something like that.
Yeah.
And its addition is this, it is constantly bearing. That's why I was being confused with this word also, because
Oh, it's like
I've been
also
connecting
goes
this.
with world. In all the world also.
Just as in the world, it's like the same idea. It comes to you just as in the world.
Yes.
Then, in addition, it is constantly bearing that.
Well,
That's my understanding.
just as it comes to you. Oh, as it comes to the world also? Is that what you are thinking? Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. Just as, yeah, with the implied idea, just as it comes.
In all the world.
Okay, is that what you're asking? Is it like that?
Just what that may take.
Which has come just as it comes in all the world.
It comes also. It comes in
Also.
the world.
Also.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because this is a comparison. Yeah. Let me take a look at that a little bit more detail, but I think this makes sense right here. That's how you are understanding it, right? It comes to you just as it comes in all the world also,
The world.
right? Is that how you understand it, Jed, or that's what you were thinking?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Because normally just as is a comparative, compares and functions like an adverb. And here it's comparing, it's come to you, it's comparing you just as it comes in all the world. I think that makes sense. I'll ponder that and then make a comment to you guys tomorrow. Let me think about that a little more.
Yeah.
Okay. Great question. Hey, let me jump to the prepositions because I want to talk about infinitives a little bit. Make sure I cover that with you guys here. But these are excellent questions. They're giving me a good challenge, so I'm glad. I appreciate that. I like the challenge. All right. Let me go to prepositions, and then hopefully we'll have time to do a little exercise. Whoops, I just skipped. Okay. So we just looked at the conjunctions. We have the coordinating and subordinating. Now, prepositions basically link a noun or noun phrase to another word in a sentence. All right. So it links a noun, and the nature of the preposition will show the relationship between that noun and some other word in the sentence. So the preposition is a word placed before a noun or a pronoun to form the phrase. All right, prepositions help nouns to express their relation to other parts in the sentence. Okay, there are many, many, many prepositions in English, over 150 of them. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to have give you guys a quiz next week. You're going to memorize all 150. Okay, can you do that? We'll memorize 150 prepositions. How many excited about that? Yeah. Okay. Oh, everyone's leaving the call now. Everyone's dropping off Zoom. We're not going to memorize all of the prepositions. I did put most of them, many of them in the appendix in your syllabus. So you have a reference to them. But no, you don't have to memorize all of them. You really don't have to know that many of them. But I did indicate to you there are 9 which are at least in the biblical text, make up, I think, 70 to 75% of all the prepositions you'll find in the biblical text, at least in English translation. All right, so this is, I asked you to memorize those 5 coordinating conjunctions. I would encourage you strongly, memorize these 9 prepositions: at, with, in, for, from, on, of, and to, and by. A with boot. Because if you memorize just those 5 conjunctions and these 9 prepositions, you're going to catch, oh boy, as I said in class, a large majority of the connector words. Not all of them, but I'll bet 80%. All right, so remembering those 14 words, and, nor, but, or, and yet, the coordinating conjunctions, and then at, with, in, for, from, by, on, of, to, those 9 prepositions will really, really help you in looking for identifying coordinating conjunctions. Okay? Sorry, identifying connector words. All right, so some examples. We watched the video at my house. Okay? It's describing where we watched the video. All right, pretty straightforward. And I'm going to show in these examples, I want you to pay attention to how not only the preposition and the phrase it introduced, and notice at and then house is the noun, okay, that it connects to the sentence. It's connecting at my house with watched, because it's telling where. Where did I watch? Where? At my house. So the house is the location where we watched the video. So at is connecting house to watched, and it's indicating where. That's really, the word at is often used to describe a location. All right. Next example. He hit the ball with the bat. Where's my preposition? With. What noun is it connecting? Bat. Where is it connecting that noun? To hit. How did he hit the ball? With the bat. Okay, with often expresses the idea of how. All right, how about he put his rice in his bowl? Notice, bowl is the noun. It's being connected to put because it's telling us where. Where did he put his rice? Okay, and in this case, his goes with bowl. It's whose bowl? It's describing the bowl, but I put it all in the same phrase. He put is my verb. Rice is the object. In, that's describing where. In often indicates location. All right. Wear your helmet for protection. wear your helmet. For is my preposition. Protection is the noun. It's connecting protection to where, because it's telling why. Why wear your helmet? For protection. Okay? The Lord's mercy is from the east to the west. Now, this is sort of an idiom, the east to the west, but from is indicating a location where the Lord's mercy is. Okay, where it exists. It is from the east to the west. Go down the street. By preposition. Now here I did something a little different. Writing, so wait, that looks like a verb. Actually, it's a noun here. I did something a little tricky. We say, well, how can it be a noun? Okay, well, let's walk through this. Example. There are some examples of this that were in your connector, were in Colossians. Okay, go down the street. That's my independent clause. Okay, the subject is you. This is a command. The verb is go down. The street is my object. Now, by normally is a preposition. Okay, and I have to go, okay, notice what follows it. Riding your bike. Well, riding looks like a verb here. Actually, it's functioning like a noun because it's the object of the preposition. Remember, I told you prepositional phrase, prepositions followed by a noun. It's called the object of the preposition. So if you see a word like this, writing, and it's coming after a preposition, it's likely the object of the preposition. It's functioning like a noun here. Riding your bike. Remember, we called that in last week. We called that a gerund. That's a verbal where you have a verb plus ing, but it's functioning like a noun. Now, usually you'll have an article in front of it, like a, an, or the, but sometimes you won't. And here's an example of that. So go down is, how do I go down? By riding your bike. How does he go down? Okay, how about the next one here? On the first day, God said, let there be light. Well, on looks like my preposition, and it is. Day is my noun, and it's connected to, now here is the main clause, God said. So on is actually when he said. And let there be light is the object of, it's what he said. I should have put that in quotes. Okay. And normally you do that, guys. If you have something that's a quote, that's the object of the verb said. It's what he said. Questions? Cries of agony, despair, anguish. Is this making any sense, or is this totally, have I lost everybody? Is everyone taking a nap out there?
Pastor Tim,
Yeah, Nigel. Hi.
good morning. By riding your bike, is your bike, at least on the surface, appears to be the a direct object, but the whole thing, the phrase is taken to be taken as a whole by riding your bike as a prepositional phrase.
Yes. You're
Okay.
correct on both counts. Bike is the object of riding, but by riding your bike is the whole prepositional phrase that modifies go down.
Hmm.
It's one of those more complex statements because writing, verbals sometimes have some characteristics of a verb.
Hmm.
And this is why they're called verbals. because they have a verb in the content of the word, but it also has some verbal aspects. So sometimes, like in this case, bike is the object of riding, but riding your bike, that's a noun phrase. That is
That's
complete.
confusing.
What's that?
That's confusing.
I know it is.
All right. Thank you, Master Tim.
These examples are a little more rare, so I probably shouldn't have done this to you. But I did want to throw it in there because in Colossians, there were a couple of examples. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I wish I could remember that were similar to this. If I catch one, I'll put it in my comments to you guys. Okay, a simpler one. The angel of the Lord. Okay, Lord is my noun. Of is connecting this. Of the Lord, it's connecting to angel. Which angel? And with the word of, in almost every case, it will go to the word right before it. That's what it'll modify. So that's usually an easy one to figure out where it goes. Okay, she rode the bus to, preposition, her job. Job is the noun. To is connecting that noun to road because it's telling where. She, subject, rode, verb, the bus, object, and then to her job is a phrase that is modifying road, indicating where she rode. Now remember, where can be a location or a direction. And this, I want to use this to, given our time, introduce us to talk about infinitives for a minute, because that gave some folks a little bit of trouble. And then if we have time, we'll do an exercise, Colossians 1. If you guys remember, there are some cases where that preposition to is followed by a verb instead of a noun. Remember this. Again, by definition, prepositions link a noun to another word in the sentence. Infinitives link a verb. All right. So in form, that's that in function, that's what they're different. Thus, if a word, if you have the word to and it's followed by a noun, that's going to be a prepositional phrase. But if you have the word to followed by a verb, we call that an infinitive. And the infinitive, remember, is that third verbal, that third word that looks like a verb because it has a verb in it, but it doesn't function exactly like a regular verb. So just by way of a summary, to plus a noun gives you a prepositional phrase. In this case, to is functioning as a preposition. To plus a verb gives you what's called an infinitive. So, I went to the store. Robert, if you're there, let us know. Is the word to here followed by a noun or a verb, Robert?
The store.
The store, yes. Is that a noun or a verb?
This is a noun.
It's a noun. So in this case, the word to, how is it functioning? Is it functioning as a preposition? We have to plus a noun. Remember that is a prepositional phrase. Okay. So in this case, yes, it's describing where I went, to the store. Okay. Now, Robert, how about the second one? I want to speak. Here we have to again, but is it followed by a noun or a verb?
Verb.
It's a verb in this case. So that means then To speak is an infinitive. It's not a prepositional phrase anymore. It's not functioning that way now. It's functioning a little different. How is it functioning? In this case, it's actually the object of want. Okay, what I want. All right, thanks, Robert. Alan, I'm going to ask you for the next two here. If you're there, Alan.
Yes, Pastor.
This next sentence.
To church is a preposition.
Yes,
And
because church is a noun or a verb.
the church is a noun.
Correct.
And also to hear is infinitive because here is a verb.
Yes, so I was a little tricky there. I put a prepositional phrase and an infinitive in the same sentence. Okay, so to church, to in this case is a preposition. It's a prepositional phrase. But to here is not a prepositional phrase because here is a verb. This is an infinitive. So what do we do with this? She went where to church? Okay, that describes a location. Now to hear the sermon is, sorry, why she went. All right. So in this case, this infinitive is actually introducing a phrase. Sometimes they will function like a connector word, but not always. But in this case, to hear is technically an infinitive, not prepositional phrase. All right, good job, Alan.
Thank you. Pastor,
Yeah.
okay, so next question. I think most of the infinitive functions as a verb.
No, I'm going to talk to you shortly on how they work, how they function.
Okay.
All right, so hold that question. Good question. All right, last one. Chong, I'm going to ask you to do this one. He likes to eat lechon when he likes to eat when he should be goes to a restaurant.
To eat.
Yeah, is that prepositional phrase?
Is a prepositional phrase.
Okay, let's look at, we have two. What follows two here? A noun
It's a
or a
verb.
verb? Yeah, so what does
It's
that
a-
mean?
It's a verb. It's infinitive.
Yes, all right. And then I snuck in another one here, to a restaurant.
To restaurant is a prepositional phrase.
Yes, how do I know that?
Because of the restaurant's noun.
Correct. Okay. So he likes to eat lechon when he goes to a restaurant. Now here, this is the, to eat lechon is actually the object of likes in this case. Okay, so this goes to Alan's question. Basically, how does an infinitive work? How does it function? And this is what makes infinitives so fun. They can function like a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. So they can almost act, they don't act like a regular verb, but they can act like a noun, adjective, or adverb. All right, so here's some examples. As a noun, I love to eat. To eat is the object of love. I love what? I love to eat. So in this case, to eat is acting like a noun because it's the object of in the sentence. So subject, I, love is the verb, to eat is the object. So even though it's a verbal idea, eating, to eat, it's still here acting like a noun. To eat acts like a noun because it's the object of love. All right. So if another example, let's see if I give one. This could be done. To eat brings her joy. All right. Here it's acting like a noun again because it's the subject in this sentence. To eat brings is a verb, and then her is the object. Brings joy actually is the verb. All right. So you might see this sometimes that way. I think to err, here's a common proverb in English. To err is human, or to make an error is human. To err is an infinitive, and it's the subject. To err is human. I forget what is the rest of it. To love is divine. I don't remember the full phrase.
To forgive.
To forgive is divine. Yeah. To forgive. See, Nigel knows English better than I do. All right. To forgive is divine. And both of these are infinitives. And they're functioning like nouns because they're acting like the subject in the sentence. Okay, subject, verb, and then divine is an adjective. It's a subject complement. All right, so sometimes infinitives will act like a noun. Sometimes, or here's another. Oh, I had an example right after. All right, I didn't see that. All right, to walk is good for your health. So in this case, to walk is an infinitive. Notice to plus the verb walk, and it's functioning like the subject. Therefore, it's a noun. Remember, subjects and objects are nouns in the sentence. All right. Questions on that? All right. Let's look at sometimes infinitives function like adverbs. And I would say probably this is the more common way they function. All right. The man came to preach. All right. I have the subject is man. Came is the verb. Why did he come? He came to preach. So here, this is actually acting like an adverb because it's answering the question, why? He came. Why did he come? To preach. Okay, think of it this way. If he had said the man came quickly, that would be an adverb describing how he came. Here it's that he came to preach. Or I used the bat to hit the ball. All right. In this case, to hit is my infinitive because notice hit is a verb following to, and it's describing here the purpose of used. I used the bat. Why? To hit the ball. Now, here we have an example I was trying to show earlier at Nigel loved that example by riding his bike. Remember that one? Well, here, notice the ball is the object of hit. So here, this to hit has a verbal idea because it has an object, but it's actually technically an infinitive, not a regular verb. He didn't say I hit the ball. He says I used the bat to hit the ball. And ball here actually is the object of hit. But to hit the ball is a phrase, not a clause, because to hit is an infinitive, not a regular verb. Okay? So that's why these two examples show how infinitives can be used as adverbs. Infinitive can be used as an adjective. The woman to call is the pastor's wife. All right, in this case, to call is my infinitive, call is a verb. And here it's modifying woman. Which woman? The woman to call. And if I'm diagramming the sentence, I would do it this way. The woman is the pastor's wife. That's my main sentence. So the subject, woman. The verb is. And then wife is my subject complement. In this case, a predicate nominative. It's modifying. The woman is pastor's wife. But to call is modifying woman. It's telling us something about the woman. Which woman? The woman to call. All right. And then finally, there's another example of a noun functioning as a subject complement. Desire is the subject of this sentence. My desire is verb. And then to preach is, it's not the object, because notice is as a verb of being. So verbs of being don't have objects, but they're followed by a subject complement. All right. And in this case, it's acting like a noun. All right. Let's work on an example from Colossians 1. Okay. And then we'll see if we have any time left. All right. Yancey, I'm going to pick on you for this one. Try to identify in verse 9, do you see any infinitives here?
To pray.
To pray, yes. Good.
It's describing ceased.
Yeah, it's the object of ceased. We have not ceased to pray. Here, I'll do it this way. So when I'm diagramming, I leave that in the same clause because it's object of have ceased to pray. All right, good. Any others in verse 9? Any other infinitives?
To ask.
Yeah. Now, where does that go? That is an infinitive. How is it working in the sentence here? What's it connected to or related to?
It is still describing have not ceased.
Yes. And notice the conjunction and here. See that? It's connecting these two infinitives. Remember, guys, coordinating conjunctions always connect two grammatically equal words, phrases, or clauses in the sentence. Here it's connecting two infinitives. We have not ceased to pray and to ask. Now, for you goes with to pray. And that you may be filled goes with to ask. So if we were diagramming this, all right, we would have it, we have not ceased, and then I'd put to pray on the same line because it is the object of ceased, and we have not ceased to ask. That you may be filled. That's how I would diagram this. All right, good. And then verse 10, we have one infinitive, to please. And that this infinitive in this case goes with it's the result of walk. or purpose of walk. Why? To please him. So its function here is an adverb. Okay. Any questions? So you can go back. There's several infinitives in the Colossians connector word assignment. I think I pointed them out to you guys who thought they were acting like prepositions. So you can go back and look at those of you that finished the connector words assignment and see how great. And if you have any questions, if you go back and look at that, feel free to ask me. Okay. All right. So how you guys feeling? Do you want to try to just look at relative pronouns the next 5 minutes, or have you run out of tissue and you're ready to have lunch? Not sure how to answer that question, are you?
Yeah, it's okay. You discuss to us relative pronoun, Pastor, for 5 minutes.
Okay.
It's very important to us.
Yeah. And if any one of you need to go, then that's fine. I won't be offended. But yeah, let me just take a few minutes that we have left and go over relative pronouns. And then any of you want to have questions or anything, you can ask. But let's do that real quick. Relative pronouns to me are the easiest in the whole bunch. Okay. That for me anyway. For a couple reasons. One is, as we look at relative pronouns, they're the fewest that we have to memorize or look for. A pronoun introduces a dependent clause. A relative pronoun is a pronoun that introduces a dependent clause. Remember, a pronoun, see the word noun in it? Pronoun refers to or represents, points to a noun. So, for example, if I said, Pastor AJ preached after he studied, the he there is a pronoun, and it's pointing to Pastor AJ, of course. Okay? Or the next sentence, I am hungry. I is a pronoun. It's referring to the speaker, to the writer in this case. Okay? So, relative pronoun is a special case of nouns, and it is a type of pronoun that connects a dependent clause to another word in a sentence. Now, there is a list of relative pronouns, but really, honestly, just memorize these three: who, which, and that. Okay, and because you will see like who in the word whom, or whoever, or whomever, or whose. Those are all relative pronouns, but they all have the word who in them. Which is the second one. And then sometimes that. Now that's the confusing guy that we'll spend a minute talking about. But basically, for the relative pronouns, just remember who, which, and that. Who and which will almost always function like a relative pronoun. The word that is the tricky one that sometimes behaves differently. And I'll tell you how do I know if it's a relative pronoun or not. There's one trick to do to see that. All right, so relative pronouns, again, they introduce a dependent clause. So they act like a subordinating conjunction in that way. They introduce a dependent clause, always. All right, now by definition, a dependent clause will modify another word in the sentence. Okay, and in this case, it'll be another noun. Relative pronouns, again, remember, it's a pronoun, therefore it's pointing to a noun. So a relative pronoun is going to be modifying or pointing to a noun in the sentence. Which one? What kind? How many? It's going to be acting like an adjective. Okay? So the book, which was large. Which book? The large one. The book which was large. The dog that ran home. It's identifying a particular dog. Which dog? The dog that ran home. Do you know the verse which says God is love? It's modifying verse. Which verse? The man who was tall hit his head on the door.
We cannot hear you, Pastor.
Uh-oh. You can't hear me?
It seems you're off the signal.
I think you have a static line.
Can you guys see me? Hello? Can you hear me now? Uh-oh.
You're lost, Pastor Tim.
All right. Can you guys see my
Yeah.
message?
Now, yeah, you're coming now.
How about now? Can you hear me?
You're lost again.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Not sure. All right, hold on. Stay on the line. All right, let me do this. Let me leave. I'll leave